Hi. So I forgot to film the intro again. I'm so sorry. But what we're doing right now is we're starting with opening prayer. And a form of prayer is intercession. And intercession is praying on behalf of someone else. So what we're doing is we're going around in small groups and we're praying for something that you are called to pray for. So, yeah. Thanks. My last two videos have been, I forgot to film the intro. I'm so sorry. Here's what we're doing. And God is good all the time. So we're going to move on to our next section. So I need everyone, sponsors and candidates, to grab a blank sheet of paper from the middle, as well as a pen or a marker. And then, what holiday is coming up? Thanksgiving. Stay with me. So Thanksgiving is coming up. So we're going to be making Thanksgiving gratitude turkeys. So sponsors, you are going to trace the hand of your candidate onto the paper, and candidates, you are going to trace the hand of your sponsor onto their paper. And then you're going to fill it out as such. It's a lot of words, so let me walk you through it. So on the thumb, you're going to write something of gratitude. What are you thankful for? On the index finger, you're going to write, when did you share or not share God's love, presence, or forgiveness with someone else this week? Your middle finger is freedom, so how is God calling you to grow? Your ring finger will be for others, so who would you like to pray for? This is also like the intercessions that we did during opening prayer. And then your pinky will be a significant moment. So how have you experienced God in the past 24 hours? And then once sponsors and candidates have both filled out their hand turkeys, you can go ahead and draw and make it into a turkey as shown on the screen. Can you hold up your turkeys real quick so I can take a quick, wow, some of you even colored them. I love it. Love it. Thank you. Our next activity is, the communication survey. So leaders will be passing out a survey with the friends and family side up. Please do not turn over this survey. But what you're going to do is fill this out. Do I have a slide for this? I do have a slide for this. So you're going to fill this out. You're going to take some time to fill this out and talk over your answers with your candidate and sponsor. And it's just going to ask you to think of one person in particular that you have a close relationship with, and to rank your communication and your relationship, and to really take a deeper dive into why you have a close relationship with that person. And then when you're finished, hang tight and don't flip over the paper.
All right, and time. So now we're going to switch over to the other side of our surveys. And this one is going to be, instead of friends and family, it will be the God side. So this is the same survey, only thing is the context changes a little bit. So small group leaders, go ahead and lead the next discussion. Thank you.
Leaders, time check. Good? Cool. So God is good. All the time. So as you guys might have seen the parallel between, the sun is right in my face. If you guys have seen the parallel between the two, raise your hand if your relationship with your best friend or whoever you chose for the other side, the friends and family side, was a lot stronger than your relationship with God when written on the survey. Okay, there's like half and half. So raise your hand if your relationship with God was stronger than with the person on the other side. Okay, and then raise your hand if it was about the same for both. Okay, there's a good mix. So this was just to show the parallel between how important it is to maintain your relationship with God, just as it's just as important to maintain your relationship with God as it is with the people around you, as it is with the people that you hold closest to your heart. Elgin's going to lead us into the next section, which is why pray and why keeping that form of communication open with God is really important to forming our relationship with Him.
All right. So the next portion of our next section is why pray. So for why pray, it's why do we pray? A lot of us tend to misinterpret prayer as like, I want to win the lottery, or I wish my boss was a lot nicer to me so that I could get my vacation time. There's a lot of ways to interpret prayer, but on the real, like, prayers are a form of communication with our God. So our communication, our relationships just with our friends and family, it's important to communicate with each other. Amen? Wow, okay, so you guys agree with me. But that form of communication is important for God as well. And the best way to do it is not through text, not through email, Facebook, Instagram. It's through prayer. That's our way to communicate with God. So praying to God doesn't just mean like us just talking to Him. Communication goes both ways. It's a two-way street. So to communicate both ways, it has to, one, we talk to God. But it's not just us talking to God. We have to listen to God too. And He has very unique ways on like how He answers our prayers. So, but we have to just keep our eyes open to it, or keep our eyes and ears open. So praying to God just means that we talk to God as well as listening to God. And we have to open ourselves up to what God has to say and what others need us to do. Our God is a jealous God. So that doesn't mean that God is envious of us or that He doesn't want us to spend time with other people. This actually just means that He loves us so much. He loves us so much. And He wants to hear from us. He wants us to put Him first. And He wants us to come to Him with our trials and our victories. Like, imagine we all have our family and friends out there. Imagine if we only came to that friend every single time whenever we had troubles. It's like complaining about this, worrying about that. God doesn't just want to hear the things that you're struggling with, but the things that the great things that are going through in your life as well. All right, and then to put things into perspective, think of it this way. God created all of us, every creature, every existing creature, living and dead. And out of everything that He made, He wants to hear from you. Out of billions and billions of people in the world, He misses you. He wants to talk to you. This amazing, incredible, all-powerful being wants to hear from you. Like, think of it this way: is, for example, it would be as if your favorite celebrity or like sports hero or whoever wanted to talk to you, but like 1,000 times greater. Like if LeBron or Klay Thompson, Drake, Stephen Curry, Beyonce, any of them, or the Pope, like if any of them wanted to spend the day just to talk to you for the rest of your life, but this is even better. Our relationship with God would be even better.
So Matthew chapter 7, verse 7 in the Bible says, "Ask and you shall receive, seek and you shall find." And this is in regards to prayer. So ask and you shall receive, ask God and you shall receive, seek God and you shall find what you're looking for. But in saying this, our relationship with God is just not take, right? Your relationship with anyone, you would not have a quality relationship with anyone in your life if all you did was take from them. And so God is asking us to keep that relationship open with Him, not just to take, but to talk with Him, to pray to Him, to listen to Him as well. It's a two-way relationship. Just as we expect God to listen to our prayers and answer our prayers, God expects the same thing from us. He expects the same respect from us, that we also listen to Him, that we also take into consideration His answers to our prayers, and that we also consider the weight of our relationship with him and how important that is to him and to us as well. So Pope John Paul was one of my favorite popes. I thought he was so cool. But Pope Francis is also a good pope, and I'm going to quote him right now. So he said, "Sometimes one goes to the Lord to ask something for someone. One asks for a favor and then goes away. But that is not prayer. Because if you want the Lord to bestow a grace, you have to go with courage and do what Abraham did, praying persistently. But this negotiating with the Lord is only possible only when there is familiarity with the Lord." I'm going to say that last part again. But this negotiation with the Lord is only possible when there is familiarity with the Lord. And so praying persistently, like Pope Francis said that Abraham did, does not mean that we have to keep praying 24/7, always praying, always in prayer, always talking to God by saying the Our Father, always praying the Rosary. Praying persistently means that we're praying not only by communicating with God through our words and our thoughts, but also through our actions. That we're aware that whatever we're doing is portraying God to others. So if people know that we're Catholic and we're behaving in a way that is not of God, and we're hurting other people, we're killing other people's spirits, then that is not praying persistently. You're not constantly speaking to God, because you would never want God to know that you are treating his other children in such a way, right? So praying persistently means always keeping in mind that your actions, your words, and your thoughts affect those around you, and in doing so, that affects God as well. And so just keep in mind that whatever we do unto others, we do unto the Lord. And so keeping that in mind and having that mindset is allowing us to have familiarity with the Lord, is allowing us to see God in others, and knowing that whatever we're doing to other people, we're also doing unto God. There's stories in the gospel, so whenever we break open the gospel in church, or even when we're reading the gospel in the Bible, we constantly hear about Jesus going to pray. And so there are some instances. So Mark chapter 1, verse 35 says, "In the morning, while it was still dark, he, Jesus, got up and went out to a deserted place, and there he prayed." And then Matthew chapter 14, verse 23 says, after Jesus had dismissed the crowds, he went up by a mountain by himself to pray. Another one for you. In Luke, we read, "Now more than ever, the word about Jesus spread abroad. Many crowds would gather to hear him and be cured of their diseases, but he would withdraw to deserted places to pray." One more. And then this is in Luke. Just kidding. Well, in my notes it says, in Luke, Jesus took with him Peter, James, and John and went up on a mountain to pray. So in all of these instances, we're seeing Jesus withdrawing from everyone else and reflecting to pray, to talk with God. And so if Jesus, who, keep in mind, is God himself, Jesus is 100% human and 100% divine. Jesus is God himself. If God himself had to take time away from everyone else and to pray, how much more do you and I need to do it? We're nowhere near God's divinity status. And so if Jesus had to go take time away to pray, how much more do you and I have to do the same thing? We're going to go on to break, but before we do so, we have been asked by Eleanor and Father Ernesto to go over a couple of things. So sponsors, raise your hand if you did this online registration. You're all squared away, good to go. Wonderful, thank you. So for all of you who have filled this out, great. For those of you who haven't, if this does not look familiar to you, this was due before session. But if you have not done it yet, please do so by tonight. This needs to be done by tonight. In addition to that online registration, sponsors should fill this out. This is a sponsor's certificate of eligibility, and this needs to be signed by a priest at the bottom right here. And so the priest is going to certify that all of the above is complete. And so we're going to go into each of these areas in detail, just because, again, these were filled out incorrectly. So, if these apply to you, and they all should, you should have a check in the box that says yes. And in order to be a sponsor, all of these should be filled out with yes. So if you put a no for any of these, there's an issue, and Eleanor would like to talk to you during the break. So you must, as a sponsor, be baptized in the Catholic Church. You must have celebrated your first communion. You must have celebrated your first reconciliation. You must be confirmed in the Catholic Church. You must be 16 years or older, a practicing Catholic, because as sponsors, we are setting the example for our candidates. So you must be a practicing Catholic. You cannot be a parent to the candidate. Of course, today I know we have some proxies, but officially, if you are a parent, you cannot be a sponsor of your child. You can be the sponsor to someone else's child, just not your child. And then your marriage you must be married in the Catholic Church. And if you're not married in the Catholic Church, you cannot be cohabitating with someone else who is not your married spouse in the Catholic Church. So again, if you checked no or false to any of these, there might be a slight issue, and Eleanor will talk to you during the break. And also on the bottom of this page, it has to be signed off by a parish priest. So this cannot be completed by the sponsor, the parent, or the candidate. A parish priest has to sign their name here, certifying that you, the sponsor, are in good standing with the Catholic Church. Must be dated and signed at the bottom, and then a seal from that parish should be also on the paper. So if you ask the priest to sign and seal the paper, they'll know what you mean by requesting to seal the paper. And then if you do not have this form, if you need a copy, we have extra copies in English and Spanish up here. So sponsors, feel free to grab one during break. I know that was a lot of information, I'm sorry. We're gonna let you go to break shortly, but we're just going to say grace. So if anyone has hats or hoods or anything on their heads or sunglasses, although it's pretty dark in here, I don't know why you have sunglasses, but if we can please remove all hats, caps, and if we can close our eyes, and remember that we are in the presence of a good and gracious God that loves us. Let us exhale anything else that we may be thinking about, and only inhale God in His presence. And let us begin as we begin all things in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord God, we just praise your name, we praise your goodness, and we thank you for being the merciful and forgiving Father that you are. We thank you for countless blessings that you have given us, and we thank you for always being with us and making sure that we never walk alone. We thank you for nourishing us both physically and spiritually, and we thank you for your presence. We thank you for the food that we are about to partake in. We thank you for the hands that have prepared it. We thank you for the people who have brought it so that we may break bread together. And Lord, we ask that you bless those who are not as fortunate as to break bread together with people, with a community, with your people. We ask that you provide them with the opportunity to nourish their souls and nourish their bodies as well. And as we say with meals, bless us, O Lord, in these thy gifts, which we are about to receive from thy bounty through Christ our Lord. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. So if you could form two lines at the back and grab snack, that would be great. If you have questions, please come up, and leaders, please come up with your attendance sheets. Thank you. Can we please give a round of applause for our snack team? Thank you, guys. Thank you. not seen the movie yet, it's with Jim Carrey. And his name is Bruce. His character's name is Bruce. Oh, wait. Thank you. What? Just kidding. Mr. Incon needs to make an announcement real quick. Okay, back to Bruce Almighty. So this is a movie, and the main character's name is Bruce, played by Jim Carrey. And he is an anchorman on the news, and then he loses his position at work, so he's laid off. And Bruce complains to God, and it says that God is treating him poorly. Like, why would you do this? I'm a decent person. Why would you lay me off? And God, who is played by none other than Morgan Freeman, gives Bruce all of his powers. God gives Bruce all of his powers and says, okay, if you think I'm doing a poor job at being God, you be God. You can have my powers, and let's see how you do. But with all of the powers of being God comes all the responsibilities of being God. So again, just a reminder, today's session is on prayer, and this short clip is going to show us how Bruce handles prayer. Can I get lights, please? Back on? Thank you. Wow, it's like magic. And let there be light. Okay, so as you saw, Bruce got overwhelmed with the amount of prayers that came, and he just went, all right, let's just hit reply all and yes to everything. So of course God doesn't do that, because God has the power to hear all of our prayers and answer all of our prayers. But the thing is, God answers our prayers in his own way, at his own time. And this doesn't always sit well with us. So if God is answering our prayers in a way that we didn't want, sometimes we dismiss it. Sometimes we say, that's not really the answer I was looking for, so I don't think that's God answering my prayer. I think that's just a coincidence. And we fail to realize that, again, our relationship with God is a two-way street. God heard our prayer, and God's providing us with an answer. And it's up to us to accept that answer as well, and to listen to God as well. And so it's kind of like with a friend, or it's like your relationship with a parent, right? Your parent will tell you what they know is best for you, but it's not always what you want to hear, right? But you know that deep down, your parents have only good intentions for you, and that they're only looking out for the best for you. The same as with God. His answer might not be what we want to hear, and it might not be at the time that we want to hear it, but God knows what's best for us, and he knows everything is better in his own timing, and he would never want to lead us astray. So just knowing that God's answer is what's best for us, even though it may not seem like it in the moment, that it's the best for us in the long run, because God knows our past, present, and future. God knows us inside and out. So whatever God decides is best for us. And it's up to us to choose to accept it and be okay with knowing that we are a part of God's greater plan, or to reject it and not be as open to receiving God as we should be.
All right. So we're going to slowly transition to the next part. So we just want to emphasize the importance of prayer, and how prayer is a form of communication. So for prayer, remember, it's a two-way street. We have to be looking out for what God is trying to tell us. So it reminds me of a story. So for this story, it talks about, what is it? There was a man in Florida, and the man was at his house, and there was a flood warning, and the news was saying, like, this is going to be the worst flood in centuries. Please evacuate Florida. So the man said, oh, I'm just going to stay home. That's okay. God's going to save me anyways. So the flood starts coming, and the waters start to rise, and someone comes knocking at his door saying, hey, we gotta go. And the guy says, no, it's okay. God will save me. And then the flood starts getting higher and higher, so he goes up to the second floor, or onto his roof, because the flood is getting so high up. And he's just like, a boat comes by, and he says, hey, jump onto our boat. you gotta get out of here. You're not gonna make it if you stay on the top of your house. And he said, no, 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 it's okay. God will save me. A helicopter comes, and the helicopter lowers the ladder, and he's like, hey, come climb the ladder. We're here to save you. And then he's like, no, it's okay. God will save me. The guy drowned. The guy drowned. And then when he goes to heaven, he says, God, why didn't you save me? Why didn't you do anything? He's like, dude, I sent you a news report. Someone knocked on your door. There was a boat, a helicopter. What else? So you got to be open to those forms of communication with our God. Like, he would be literally lay out these like answers for you. But are you really looking for it? Are you really seeing or hearing what God has in store for you? Like my story? Cool. So, moving on, we're going to go on to the next icebreaker. This is more like a discussion. So, for this next part, we ask you guys to find your life verse. A couple of the young adults from the diocese and myself, along with some other young adults, were talking about what is your life verse? And we're like, what is the life verse? This is the Bible verse that you depict for your life. This is your life verse. This is what is going to get you through the good times and the bad times. So, for example, mine would be Philippians 4:13. Philippians 4:13 says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Once again, that's, I believe I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. That's my life verse. Whenever times are good, times are bad, that's the verse that I go to. That's what's going to get me through my good and bad. So for this next part, we're going to allow candidates, leaders are going to keep an eye out. Candidates, you're allowed to take out your phones so that you can look up Bible verses. And there's also Bibles located at your tables. Find a verse that speaks to you. You may not get it completely done today, but this is just to initiate what is going to get you through your life. What is going to be the Bible verse that you're going to feel is you feel called to be your life verse. Amen? All right. And then small group leaders, after Mr. Khan gives instructions, go ahead and take it away. We'll say, shower, clap. One more time, shower, clap. All right, thank you so much. So we're going to move on with the next part of our session. And the next part of our session is the rosary. So one of our young adults, Jake Guzman, is going to lead us in the next portion of this session.
Hi guys, so I will be talking about the rosary. So one type of prayer we have is formal recited prayer. In the forms of the Our Father, the Hail Mary, the Glory Be. And these formal prayers never change because they're already written for us. So the rosary is one very large prayer consisting of many different formal prayers. So the rosary consists of the Apostles' Creed, Our Holy Queen, and 5 decades. One decade consists of 1 Our Father, 10 Hail Marys, 1 Glory Be, 1 Oh My Jesus. There are also many different mysteries you say in between each decade, depending on what day the rosary is prayed on. The mysteries of the rosary center on events in Jesus' life. On Mondays and Saturdays are the joyful mysteries, and they are the Annunciation of the Lord to Mary by the angel Gabriel, the visitation of Mary to her cousin Elizabeth, the nativity of our Lord Jesus Christ, the presentation of our Lord, and the finding of Jesus in the temple. Tuesdays and Fridays are the sorrowful mysteries, and they are the agony of Jesus in the garden, the scouring at the pillar, the crowning of thorns, the carrying of the cross, and the crucifixion of our Lord. Wednesdays and Sundays are the glorious mysteries, and they are the resurrection of Jesus Christ, the ascension of Jesus to heaven, the descent of the Holy Spirit, the assumption of Mary into heaven, and the crowning of our Blessed Mother. And finally, Thursdays are the luminous mysteries, and they are the baptism in the Jordan, the wedding in Cana, the proclamation of the kingdom, the transfiguration, and the institution of the Eucharist. So the word rosary means crown of roses, and it's one of many beliefs that after one full rosary is prayed, that a star is added to Mary's veil.
So speaking of our Blessed Mary, our Blessed Mother Mary, she's our queen, right? So when commenting on like a friend's Instagram post or like seeing like Beyonce or Selena or like Rihanna or even the Queen of England, I know that I'll comment like on the bottom like yes, queen or slay queen. But even the Queen of England has nothing on the Queen of Queens. That's our Blessed Mary, who we'll dive in a little bit to like why she's so important to our faith and how she brings us closer to Jesus. But because of our Blessed Mother Mary, because of this woman, because of the Queen of all queens, we were given the gift of Jesus, who gave us the gift of salvation, who gave us the gift of eternal life. Mother Mary, she was about 12 years old when the angel Gabriel came to her and told her that God wanted her to bring Jesus Christ, the Savior of all nations, of past, present, and future, to come into our lives, to come into the world. She was 12. So to put that in perspective, our Blessed Mother was about the age of a 7th or 8th grader. She was younger than you when an angel came to her and said, God wants you to do the most important thing that any other human will ever do, to bring my son into this world. And so at a very young age, Mary, who, again, 12 years old, we usually see her depicted as a full-grown woman, but realistically, she probably looked like the image on your left. She was really young. At an incredibly young age, Mary said yes. And in saying yes to being the mother of our Savior, to bringing God into this world, she said yes to all of the shame that she would get for being pregnant before getting married. She said yes to giving up the rest of her childhood. She said yes to being the mother of us all at 12 years old. And that's incredible, incredibly selfless of her to not only think of herself and how this decision would affect her and her parents and her future, but also knowing that her decision to say yes to God would affect everyone to ever walk the earth, would affect all of God's children. And at such a young age, to think so selflessly and to think of others before you is such a testament to Mary's purity and her humble heart. And we praise her because she's the reason that God was brought into this world. She's the reason that we're able to say that we have eternal salvation in our God. And so Mary's purpose is to make our relationship with Jesus stronger than it could be. And Mary comes to all of those who come to her so that we can build a relationship with her son. She wants us all to be with her son. That's the job of the mother, is to make sure that her child is making these strong relationships with people and that her child is happy and can spread goodness to other people. And so that's why there are her famous appearances such as Our Lady of Guadalupe, Our Lady of Lourdes, Our Lady of the Miraculous Medal. There have been Marian apparitions all over the world, in Portugal, France, Lithuania, Mexico, Rwanda, all over the world, because Mary wants all the people all over the world to know her son better and to build that relationship with him. The leaders have a gift for each of you. So each of the candidates and each of the sponsors, the leaders are going to give you a rosary. And this was blessed earlier today, so please respect the rosary. Please don't let it touch the ground. Please treat it with respect. And we give this to you as your spiritual weapon. We give this to you so that you can build a relationship with our Blessed Mother so that she can help you in your journey to Christ. So if you need extra, there are some up here. But again, one per candidate and one per sponsor. And then once you have received your rosary, we ask that you fold up your chairs and that leaders can help you guys put it